Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to help unlock complex knowledge, taking dense stuff and making it, well, much clearer.
That's the plan.
Today, we're really diving deep into the absolute foundations of how the human body works. Our guide, the classic Medical Physiology by Boron and Boulpaep.
A cornerstone text for sure.
Exactly. And our mission here is simple. Take this incredibly detailed, sometimes intimidating material and distill it. Make it feel less like you're reading a textbook and more like we're just chatting about it.
Maybe over coffee, yeah. But with, academic precision still baked in.
Think of it as your shortcut to really getting these core principles without feeling totally swamped.
And we're definitely building this from the ground up. We'll start with the big picture, give you that context, then dive into the nitty-gritty details.
Right.
And even though this is audio, no visuals, we're aiming to paint a really clear mental picture for you. We'll keep connecting these ideas back to clinical relevance, too.
That's so important. How does this actually apply?
You'll see how it ties into diagnostics, understanding disease, even treatment approaches. It all starts here.
Because, this isn't just about cramming facts, is it? It's about understanding the why, the how.
Exactly.
We want you to feel confident tackling these complex physiological concepts, making them stick in a way that's actually useful. Okay, so Boron and Boulpaep. To really dive in, we have to start at square one. What is physiology? Like, at its absolute core.
Right. Well, fundamentally, it's the dynamic study of life. It focuses on the vital functions of living things.
Vital functions.
And that's at all levels, from molecules and cells all the way up to organs, organ systems, the whole organism. It's really about what life does, how it works.
So it's not just structure, like anatomy.
Well, that's a key point. Physiology isn't primarily about static structure, no. But structure and function, they're completely inseparable. You can't have one without the other.
Makes sense. The structure exists to perform the function.
Precisely. Living structures do things. And the scale varies hugely, like you mentioned. Some focus on the whole person exercise physiology, for instance.
Yeah.
Clinicians often think in terms of organ systems, cardiovascular, respiratory, GI.
The usual suspects.
Right. But then you can zoom way in to the basic principles happening in cells, common across all tissues. That used to be called general physiology, but now it's more often cellular and molecular physiology.
And medical physiology, the focus of Boron and Boulpaep, takes this, really global view, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. It demands that integrated understanding across molecules, cells, organs. It's genuinely holistic.
It feels like you need to be a bit of a jack of all trades.
In a way, yes. And historically, physiology is kind of the mother science for fields like biochemistry, biophysics, neuroscience. They branched off from it.
Oh, interesting. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, it tells you something important. Complex biological problems demand integrated thinking. You can't just stay in one silo.
Right. Everything connects.
Exactly. So its boundaries aren't super sharp. But it has evolved. It started more qualitative, describing things, and now it's much more quantitative, measuring, modeling.
Bringing in other disciplines.
For sure, drawing on expertise from chemistry, physics, engineering, you need those tools to quantify what the body is actually doing.
Okay, so we have all these levels, molecules, cells, organs, systems. How do they actually, coordinate? How do they work together?
Communication. That's critical. For the body to function as one unit, all these parts have to work hand in hand. They need to share information constantly.
And how does that information sharing happen? Is it like sending little emails?
Sort of, but chemically, almost always it's happening at the molecular level. Tiny messengers.
Like what?
Could be simple ions, H plus Ra, K plus Ra, topestre plus Ra. Or more complex chemicals released by a cell that act on its neighbor or travel through the blood.
Hormones, for example.
Exactly. Or think about neurons. They send electrical signals over long distances, sometimes a meter or more, then release a neurotransmitter right onto the target cell. But the final step, the communication itself, it's almost always molecular.
Okay, so molecules are the language. But who's writing the script? Who's the grand organizer behind all this communication?
That brings us squarely to the genome, our DNA.
Right, the blueprint.
Exactly. Traditionally, physiologists might have focused more on the cell or organ level, leaving DNA to the molecular biologists. But That's changed.
How so?
Modern physiology is deeply intertwined with molecular biology now because that DNA, it encodes the very proteins physiologists care most about.
Like channels, pumps, receptors,
Well,
like the things that make cells work.
precisely those things. They're the machinery. And this connection has led to fields like physiological genomics or functional genomics.
Functional genomics.
Yep.
Okay, what does that mean practically?
It means we're directly linking how organs function all the way down to the molecular biology, to the genes themselves. It kind of closes the circle.
From gene to function and back again.
You got it. And a really powerful tool here has been the knockout mouse.
Ah, yes, I've heard of those, where you delete a specific gene.
Exactly. You take out a gene for a protein you think is absolutely critical, and sometimes nothing obvious happens, or you get totally unexpected effects.
Wait, really? You remove a vital gene and the mouse is fine?
It can happen. It's fascinating and a bit baffling sometimes.
So, what then? If the expected doesn't happen?
Well, that's where the physiologist comes in. They have to figure out why. It forces you to think integratively. Go back up from the gene, look at the whole system.
Did another system compensate? Was the gene's role different than we thought?
All of those things. It really underscores how physiology, maybe more than other basic medical sciences, has this broad, integrative outlook. It's about connecting all those dots.
It sounds essential for tackling complex stuff.
Absolutely. Think about something like blood pressure. It's not controlled by just one gene, right?
Yeah.
Many genes are involved. So you can do population studies, use statistical tools to find genetic variations, polymorphisms that seem to correlate with blood pressure changes. Right. But correlation isn't causation. The physiologist's job is crucial then. They need to do controlled experiments to confirm, does this specific gene variant actually change blood pressure? And if so, how? What's the mechanism?
So you need both the big picture population data and the detailed lab work.
Exactly. You need that integrated approach.
Okay, so this incredible coordination, this constant molecular chat, it's all working toward what? What's the big goal?
Stability. Maintaining a stable internal environment. And that takes us to a really foundational concept, almost 150 years old now, from Claude Bernard.
Bernard, right, the milieu intérieur.
Precisely, the internal environment. Back in 1878, he pointed out that animals really live in two environments. There's the external world around us, and then there's this highly controlled internal liquid environment, what we now call the extracellular fluid, where our cells and tissues actually live.
So our cells aren't directly exposed to the outside world.
Not most of them, no. Bernard used this wonderful analogy. He said the body is like an organism that's put itself inside a greenhouse.
A greenhouse. I like that.
Yeah. This internal environment shields the cells, isolates them from the constant changes happening outside. It allows things to carry on relatively undisturbed.
That makes intuitive sense.
Yeah.
But you mentioned a subtlety about things within the body not being inside.
Yes. It's a bit counterintuitive, but think about the contents of your gut, or the inside of your sweat ducts, or your kidney tubules.
Okay.
Even though they're contained within your physical body, they are technically continuous with the external environment. They're sort of like tunnels going through. The true internal environment is the fluid bathing the cells.
Huh, okay, that's a neat distinction. The greenhouse analogy really helps picture that protected space.
It does. And Bernard made another profound point. He linked the constancy, the fixité of this internal environment directly to having a free, independent life.
Wow. Okay, unpack that. What does constancy equals freedom really mean here?
It means that because we have specialized organ systems, cardiovascular, respiratory, urinary, digestive, endocrine, all working nonstop to keep that internal environment incredibly stable, we can survive, even thrive, despite massive changes in the external world. We're independent of it, in a way, because our cells live in this perfectly maintained internal world.
That is a powerful idea. Our internal stability gives us external freedom.
Exactly. And remember, besides maintaining this constancy, living things generally share 4 key properties: exchanging matter and energy, sensing and reacting to signals, growth and reproduction, and adaptability.
Adaptability.
Right.
Okay, so this drive for internal stability, this constancy, that sounds a lot like a word we hear all the time in biology.
Homeostasis.
Homeostasis, there it is. That's the core concept, isn't it?
It's arguably the central theme in physiology. It's the body's meticulous control of vital parameters.
Like what kind of parameters?
Oh, things like arterial blood pressure, core body temperature, the levels of oxygen, glucose, potassium, calcium, hydrogen ions in your plasma. The list goes on.
And this happens at the whole body level.
Yes, but also right down to the single cell level.
Yeah.
Cells regulate their own volume, their energy levels. It's homeostasis all the way down.
So how does the body do it? What's the mechanism behind maintaining this balance?
The workhorse mechanism is negative feedback. It's actually quite elegant in its simplicity.
Negative feedback. Okay.
It basically has four key parts. First, the system needs a way to sense the parameter it's controlling, like sensors for blood glucose.
Got it. Step 1, detect.
Step 2, it has to compare that sensed value to an internal reference point, a set point. This comparison generates an error signal. How far off are we?
Sense, then compared to target.
Okay, step 3, the system generates an output. It usually takes that error signal and multiplies it by something called gain.
Gain. What's gain?
Think of it like the volume knob. A high gain means even a small error triggers a big response. A low gain means a more sluggish response. So if blood sugar is slightly high, a high gain system releases a good amount of insulin quickly.
Okay, so gain determines the strength of the response.
Exactly. And finally, step 4, that output signal activates an effector mechanism, something that actually does something to counteract the original change.
Like telling cells to take up glucose in the insulin example.
Precisely. The effector opposes the initial disturbance, bringing the parameter back towards the set point. That's negative feedback. Push it one way, the system pushes back the other way.
And you said negative feedback is the main way. Are there others?
There's positive feedback, too, where a change triggers a response that amplifies the change, but that's usually for specific short-term processes like blood clotting or childbirth. For stable, ongoing control, negative feedback is overwhelmingly the way to go.
Makes sense. Positive feedback sounds like it could spiral out of control.
It can if it's not carefully regulated. Now, these feedback loops don't operate in isolation either.
How do you mean?
They interact. Sometimes they work together synergistically, other times they oppose each other antagonistically. Think insulin-lowering blood glucose, while hormones like epinephrine or cortisol work to raise it.
So there's push and pull between different systems too.
Absolutely. And there's often a hierarchy, like the hypothalamus in the brain controlling the pituitary gland, which then controls the adrenal cortex. It's a cascade of control influencing things like blood sugar.
Wow, layers upon layers.
Which brings us to another important principle: redundancy.
Redundancy, like backups.
Exactly. The more critical a parameter is for survival, the more systems the body usually has regulating it. If one pathway fails, others can often pick up the slack.
Ah, and that connects back to the knockout mice.
Right.
Why removing one gene might not have a huge effect.
Precisely. Another system might be compensating. This redundancy is key to resilience, ensuring that the internal environment, the milieu intérieur, stays remarkably stable despite challenges.
Okay, but here's something you mentioned earlier. Homeostasis isn't equilibrium. It's a steady state. What's the difference?
That's a really crucial distinction. Equilibrium implies a passive balance, no net change, and importantly, no energy needed to maintain it.
Right.
A steady state, like homeostasis, looks stable. The parameter stays constant, but it requires continuous energy input. The body is actively working, constantly balancing opposing forces to keep things stable.
So the active balancing act, not just coasting.
Definitely not coasting. It takes energy. Think about maintaining body temperature when it's cold. You're constantly burning fuel to generate heat to counteract the heat loss. That's the steady state requiring energy.
Got it. Active, energy-demanding stability. And sometimes the body has to choose, right?
Yeah.
Make priorities.
Yes, absolutely. Priorities can shift. We talked about exercise. Your core temperature system wants you to sweat to cool down. But sweating uses up body fluid, reducing blood volume. And maintaining blood volume is generally a higher priority for overall survival.
Okay.
So if you keep exercising hard, eventually the systems controlling blood volume might override the cooling system and reduce sweating to conserve fluid.
And that's when you risk overheating.
Yeah.
Heat stroke.
Exactly. The body makes a choice based on perceived priorities, but if the external stress continues, the consequences of that choice can become dangerous. It's a constant juggle.
That really paints a picture of how dynamic this whole process is. It's not static at all.
Not at all. And this relates to adaptability, too. Those feedback loops aren't totally fixed. They can be flexible.
Flexible feedback loops. How does that work?
Think about going to high altitude. Initially, the low oxygen makes you breathe a bit faster, but stay there for a while, acclimatize, and the same low oxygen level will trigger a much stronger breathing response. The sensitivity, the gain, perhaps, of the system has changed. It is adapted.
So the body adjusts its own settings over time.
It does. And genetics plays a role, too. Some populations who've lived at high altitude for generations have genetic adaptations that help them tolerate low oxygen better than lowlanders can, even after acclimatization.
Fascinating. So it's both short-term adjustments and long-term, even genetic adaptation.
Right. It's all part of how life deals with a changing world while maintaining that crucial internal stability.
Okay, this has been a fantastic tour of the foundations. So let's bring it back to the clinic. What does all this mean for someone listening who's heading into medicine or healthcare?
It means, quite simply, that medicine is fundamentally about understanding physiology gone awry.
Physiology gone awry. I like that.
Yeah, physiology describes the normal, healthy state. That's your essential reference point.
Yeah.
You have to understand normal function to figure out what's going wrong when someone is sick.
So pathology is abnormal physiology.
In large part, yes. A disease process causes some initial malfunction, say the heart muscle weakens in heart failure. That's the primary problem. But then the body's physiological feedback loops kick in to try and compensate. For example, the body retains fluid to try and maintain blood pressure when the heart's output drops.
Which sounds like a good thing initially.
Initially, it might be. But long term, that fluid retention puts more strain on the already weak heart, making the failure worse. So the body's appropriate physiological response becomes part of the problem. Understanding that cascade is crucial for treatment.
So you're treating not just the original disease, but also the body's perhaps counterproductive responses to it.
Often, yes. And interestingly, the flip side is also true. Studying diseases, seeing what happens when things break, has actually taught us a huge amount about normal physiology.
It's a two-way street then. Learning normal helps understand abnormal, and studying abnormal illuminates the normal.
Exactly why clinical examples are so valuable when you're learning this stuff. And think about diagnostics.
How so?
So many of the tests done in hospitals every day, ECGs for heart function, pulmonary function tests for lungs, kidney clearance tests, blood tests for ions, gases, hormones.
Right.
Many of those were developed directly from research in physiology labs. Physiologists figured out how to measure these functions, and that became the basis for clinical tests.
Wow. So the lab bench directly translates to the bedside.
It's a continuous flow of information back and forth. And while research might use different model organisms sometimes, for the material in Boron and Boulpaep and for our discussions here, the ultimate focus is always the human body.
That's a great point to anchor on. Okay, let's do a quick recap of this deep dive. We started with physiology as the dynamic study of life.
Looked at how structure and function are linked, different scales from molecules to whole systems.
We touched on how DNA, the genome, is the master controller, driving communication through molecular signals.
Right, the whole idea of functional genomics connecting genes to function, and the power of tools like knockout mice.
Then we got into Claude Bernard's brilliant concept of the milieu intérieur, that stable internal greenhouse our cells live in.
Which led us straight into homeostasis, the body's constant, active, energy-using process of maintaining stability via negative feedback loops.
Remembering it's a steady state, not equilibrium, with redundancy and adaptability built in.
And finally, we tied it all directly to medicine. Understanding normal physiology is the absolute foundation for understanding and treating disease physiology gone awry.
Perfect. So here's a final thought for you, our listeners, to mull over. We talked about redundancy and homeostasis being protective,
Right.
but how might that same redundancy sometimes make it tricky, clinically, to figure out the very first thing that went wrong in a complex disease? If multiple systems are compensating, how do you find the original trigger?
That's a good one. Something to ponder.
Definitely. And remember, tackling this material, mastering these complex ideas, it might seem daunting, but it is absolutely within your grasp.
You really are capable of understanding these intricate systems.
We're here to help you on that journey. You're part of the Deep Dive family, and you've totally got this.